to our work?
Well, luckily you are in my neighborhood. So basically my neighborhood shrunk to, I don't like to go like Tuesday anymore, to Monterey County anymore, or Mendocino County anymore.
We like.
Pretty much San Francisco, Northern San Francisco County.
We like.
Perfect. I'm glad you're still with us.
Yeah.
Okay. We shall begin our meeting April 17th, Open Space and Ecology Committee. And we should do roll call.
I'm here.
I'm here. Barbara's here.
I'm here.
And we're missing 2 people right now, Ross and Mary, correct?
And we're still down 1.
Okay. Now we can go through and adopt the agenda.
Somebody advancing the slides?
Roll call.
I move we adopt the agenda as written.
I'll second.
Excellent. Everybody in favor?
Aye.
All right, the agenda is adopted. All right, oral communication, public comment. Yay! Always welcome.
Thank you very much.
Especially since without your efforts, we wouldn't exist as a committee.
Thank you.
And we're very grateful for that. The community is.
There's probably some truth to that.
Oh, there's a lot of truth to that.
So anyway, I thought it was about time I made a visit because I really have a personal identity with what you do and what you are doing, and I've had a history with it, as you know. So anyway, I just wanted to make a couple of comments and bring a couple of things to your attention again. I'm sure you are aware of it, but I thought, what the heck, why not?
Ray, do you want to state your name for the
Okay, for
tape?
the record.
Yeah. We all know who you are. You're famous.
The record, it's Ray Miller, Brisbane resident. Okay. Over 50 years, actually.
Past city council, past mayor, past.
Okay, so I did want to congratulate you for all the tremendous work that you all been doing. I've been watching all those vignettes that come every week with the Brisbane City News. And I know you've been working very hard on the climate action plan, which is great. And so I really want to give you my congratulations on good work. The climate action plan really made me very much aware of some of the more recent literature that's out, which I'm sure some of you know is pretty depressing. I wanted to bring 2 of those things to your attention just in case you haven't seen them yet, but I bet you Glenn has. And the 2 things I wanted to bring to your attention about the imminent dangers from climate change. There was a very interesting article in last week's Financial Times weekend on what's called the Extinction Rebellion in Europe. I don't know whether you've seen this article or not, but it's extremely well done.
I haven't seen the article, but they did shut down much of London
Right.
this week.
And it's a very well done article, and what I thought I'd do is I made copies and give to you all, and then you could make copies for this
That'd be great.
committee if they
Thank you.
wish.
Or is it easy to bring out a soft copy to send it out to everybody?
Well, it's not so easy with the Financial Times.
No, they have a paywall.
They have
they
a
so
it's a protected
Okay.
website, yes.
Perfect.
right.
Thank you.
Scan it and send it.
Thank you.
Then the other article, which I'm sure you're familiar with the author, and that, of course, is Bill McKibben, famous for deep ecology. But in reader-supported news, which I think Glenn brought to my attention some years ago, there's a very scary article, which is excerpted from his new book called Falter. And the title of it is, This is How Human Extinction Could Play Out. So the whole theme of these 2 articles is that if we're not careful, and it looks as if we're not being, there's a very good chance that human civilization will disappear from the earth. And that's pretty scary, and yet that still doesn't seem to get the attention of some people. In fact, they just deny it in some cases. So it's a very depressing situation, and I think all we can do is just keep working at it and bring it to people's attention and hope that people will turn around in time. So that's my hope anyway. But I wanted to bring these to your attention just in case you haven't seen them, because both of them are quite good articles.
The McKibben articles should be pretty easy for everybody to get.
Did you bring it, though?
I did.
Okay.
Yeah, it was on the April 12th.
Yeah, I read it. I just don't remember which day. It was,
April
it was
12th.
last weekend, yeah.
So I had all that here in the information, so you can take it from there. But they're both very good articles, and it really shows how important what you're doing. And I guess I wanted to give a little history, which is somewhat interesting in that when we first met to put together this committee, the big focus was open space. And there were three former mayors on this ad hoc committee. And two of them insisted that it just be an open space committee. And there was a third member, the dissenter, who kept saying, wait a minute, the more important long-term issue, once we resolve open space, is really the protection and the preservation of the environment. After all, I mean, if the environment goes, we all go.
Yeah.
Somehow or other, there are certain people don't get that connection, but that's just the reality. And so I insisted, and even though I was a minority, I was such an insisting person that they did agree to, reluctantly, to make it the Open Space and Ecology Committee. And then we did an open space plan, which was very well done, I think.
Yeah.
And then what was interesting, during the course of those couple of years when we were still the committee was still in an ad hoc condition, it wasn't permanently established yet by the council, all of those former mayors, they changed their mind. And so it was a full support for what we now call the Open Space and Ecology Committee. And of course, the Open Space Plan, one important part of that is the Vegetation Management Plan, which Mark has been doing for years, you know. And if you don't protect from the invasive species, then the idea of it being crucial habitat doesn't make a whole lot of sense because it gets destroyed. So you really need to do that protection, and the city has really been committed to that, and I'm very happy about that. I also wanted to note that the open space plan is essentially a part of the general plan, but since we still officially have the 1994 plan, the open space plan has not been officially incorporated into the overall general plan. Now, what's interesting is that we actually prepared the language during around the period of 2006 or so when Bill Prince was planning director. And Bill had the idea that we could do the update to the general plan and also the environmental impact report for the Baylands at the same time. And that has never really fully played out. However, we did, as a committee, do all the language and incorporate all the appropriate language into the existing general plan. So that's all been done, so it's all there. So when the time comes to really update the general plan fully, that part of the task has already been done. But there is another part of the task that hasn't been done, and that's all related to climate change and sustainability. And I wanted to bring to your attention that I was also part of the committee that put together the sustainability framework for the Baylands. And there was a discussion between the members of that committee, namely Councilmember Cliff Lentz and myself. And he wanted to do it for the whole community, and I said, well, that's very complicated because doing something for sustainability in an already developed community is a lot different than when you're looking at developing a new community or a new development. So I said it's easier to do it for the new development, and so that's what we did. So the sustainability framework is now just for the Baylands. However, it could certainly be expanded and incorporated into the general plan because about all that the current general plan says about sustainability is it quotes the famous report, the Environment and Development report put together by the Norwegian Prime Minister way back in the late 80s. And it quotes that, sustainability means that the people in the future should have the same kind of quality of life that the people today. So that's in the 1994 general plan. But there's no real elaboration of that. So that part of it remains to be done. So in a way, I'm sort of challenging you all, because when we start redoing the general plan, which is inevitable, it's got to be done. This is really the role that you all have and need to do, and extremely important to get that in there. So I just wanted to bring that to your attention, that's an undone part. About the open space, mostly thanks to Fred Smith, we have managed to acquire a very significant percentage of the designated critical habitat in the Brisbane acres. But there's still some parts that are not acquired yet. And I would hope that you all would pay attention to that. And I'm assuming that the staff is still working on that. And the area that's the most important, as far as I understand it, is the Southeast Ridge. And on the Southeast Ridge, there actually are 8 parcels that are owned by the same family. So there were some negotiations with them, probably Karen knows about, but that didn't go anywhere for reasons that she also knows about. But I think that's an extremely important potential acquisition. And that's really the best habitat that hasn't been acquired by the city yet. So I hope you keep focusing on that. So my final comment is to just encourage you to keep doing what you're doing. I know all of you very well, and I have a high degree of respect for all of you. And so I know that you will do a terrific job, and there's still a lot more to do, and there's a lot more educating to do, because there are just a lot of people who don't get it yet. And yet, if we don't get it, we're done for.
I have 2 things, Ray, to say. One is that, well, first of all, thank you for laying all of this groundwork. We've been talking a bit lately about working through sustainability to more regenerative, because we're not really able to sustain what we're doing right now. It isn't sustainable, and what's out there in this sustainability framework isn't sustainable going forward. We're realizing that as with articles such as the ones that you brought up. So we're starting to talk about and verbalize it being regenerative instead of just sustainable, and that's really where we need to go, because we're not going to survive just sustainability. And that's a hard message to give, especially when people are all like, yeah, sustainable, and it's not sustainable. So that's one thing, and it's a little daunting. The other part of it is we have an opening on our board, on our committee. It would be, I know that you've served so much, but you might think about it. Finish up some of this work you started and help guide us, because I don't even know how much longer Glenn's going to stay,
Not much longer.
And we really do need serious hearts involved.
And knowledge and experience.
It's exhausting. And having to relearn and make the same mistakes over and over again. And so I wish you would seriously consider it.
Yeah, well, appreciate that. Yeah.
Or send your daughter.
Now there's a possibility.
We'll take your firstborn.
Yeah. I also wanted to say that I'm really very happy that Karen Kinzer has agreed to be your staff. I know that this was a volunteer decision on her part, from what I know in the back. And so she's really committed to this subject and to this area and to what needs to be done. And that's really important, because if you don't have good staff support, it's not going to work.
Yeah.
And
We-
with Karen, and now that
We love our
David's joined
staff.
us, and I don't know the other gentleman, but
Bob,
Bob,
okay.
we have really good
got terrific
staff.
staff.
Great
Yeah.
staff.
And
Very
Love our
dedicated.
staff.
right,
Yeah.
so I
They're
mean,
really great.
you can go for it, and
Usually
they'll be with
supportive.
you.
we are testing their limits.
Limits, yeah. Well, they'll let you know. I mean,
They do,
never
and
know
then we
when
push
to
some
be
more.
shy.
They don't push back too much,
Yeah,
Sometimes they push us.
yeah.
yeah,
No, that's good.
which is good.
Okay, so anyway, I just felt it was time to, say my 2 cents, and so thank you very much for
Missed you.
listening.
Thank you.
Thanks, Ray.
Thank you very much.
Stay if you can and watch Mark's presentation, because it's better than live TV.
Okay. Well, that's it for oral communications, public comment. So next on the agenda is our annual Brisbane Acres Vegetation Management Report out. Mark Heath,
Hey.
On Point Land Management. We're glad you're staying with us.
Work-life balance, really?
Yeah. In this region, right?
You're not allowed to
Who
do
would've
that.
thought?
It's the Bay Area.
So yeah, I'm on point land management, but really not a lot has changed. The license numbers have changed, the names changed, but it's essentially the same. So thank you for having me. Still, it was a great transition project to so many of my clients basically came with me, so I do appreciate that. All right, so it's April, mid-April. We just paid our taxes.
Yeah.
We're only 2/3 of the way through the project, so we still have a lot. I can't remember. Typically, I think I speak a little later, but it seems
Yeah.
early this year
It is.
to me. Am I right? Okay.
Yeah.
But so just know that we're not done yet. So if you also have any advice, as we have plenty of time and money to fit other stuff in within reason.
Yeah. Don't tell us that.
Yeah, exactly.
Ooh.
Preface that with a little bit.
Dang,
We'll do it everything.
you're on camera.
So again, I like this oblique picture that shows the Brisbane Acres, and it's got some labels. At some point, I probably should put the parcel names on there. I still largely use the APN numbers. It's always a challenge to rectify the Brisbane Acres parcel number IDs. I don't know where those came from, but most of my GIS stuff references the APN number, like the county the recorder that deals with that. Anyway. Assessor, I guess, assessor's office data is what I use. But this gives you a nice, I think it's better than the aerial photo, because you kind of get lost. So this gives the hiker's perspective kind of when you're looking at the mountain. And I'll keep repeating this picture as we go through the presentation, just to remind ourselves where we're talking about. This particular year, oh, go ahead.
For just one thing while I
Yes.
on my mind. The next time, can you mark off the area that is county? So we know,
The county,
or does that matter?
that top line is more or less the county property line.
So everything above that's
Yeah.
county? Okay.
And the parcels omitted are those that you don't yet currently own, as far as I know. I mean, has anybody, yeah.
Okay. I was just wondering, because like Upper Glen Park Canyon, it's not in one of the acres, it's not part of the acreage we own, but how much of it's county, how much of it is?
Which one's Glen Park Canyon?
Kind of goes up the middle.
That's the wrong button.
I'm sorry.
That one?
Yeah.
That's Firth, I thought.
I mean Firth.
Yeah.
I meant Firth.
Okay.
Glen Parkway is the
Yeah,
The street.
Gotcha. Okay.
I know what you meant.
Now I do. Yeah, that's an interesting thing. And there's a lot of work that you could do in Upper Firth, too. I mean, it's full of broom, and it's full of ivy. And I don't know that odd octagon house that's there. I don't know how big that parcel is. I just know that you guys don't own
vicinity.
Right.
The trail that goes up out of Firth Canyon cuts through the private property there.
Okay, I figured.
So there's no the public access doesn't extend from Firth Park up to the mountain. So, and she made it very clear that when we talked to her about trail access, she was fine with that, but she didn't want the brush thinned out to expose her house.
Right,
So
privacy.
whether it's invasive or not, she was pretty clear, hike away, but just let me have my,
Space.
yeah.
Right, which is a reasonable thing for people. So, that's the overview. This year I'm going to basically just go through like how we've worked on your property. So we'll actually jump around a little bit. It won't be quite so linear. But this year, and most years, we actually start at Margaret. We do have this perennial problem with continuing to get rid of all the eucalyptus sprouts. And we're definitely making progress, but there's always sprouts to treat, especially after a couple years ago you did that secondary removal,
Yeah.
and that has quite a bit of work to do, and that will just be a perennial thing for a while. But it's not difficult, and at some point it will look like this. So I think it's worth the wait. But there's a lot of gorgeous oak forest up there. It's also taking a very long time for the wood to fully decay, which I think is fine. I mean, it's a story, right, for people that hike through there. You do see the oaks grow quite fast, but and then you can kind of see what's in their wake. That's just to show you like the perennial problem there, the eucalyptus gray colored sapling there in the foreground. That's what we experience. So I don't think there's any real harm. The eucalyptus will not reestablish themselves. Even in a couple of years, 2-3 years, you could stop. But just staying on top of it annually
It's better.
moves the project forward in the long term. This particular canyon, which is the upper part of the canyon that you own, the lower part that the acacia was removed. I don't know the name of the creek or canyon. It was actually pretty flowing. There's a lot of water this year when we were up there early
I
in
haven't
the.
been up there.
So it's that was kind of cool.
How's the poison oak?
The upper canyon is brushy. It's not so. I mean, there is poison oak, but I'd say it's mostly just really brushy. But what we noticed is there's a lot of English ivy in this drainage. So this was the first year that we started removing, and they're very, very small, like individuals. So we started. It just kind of became on our radar to start pulling the small plants. So there's no large established patches. It's just small plants. But I think that's an important thing to recall because that could very quickly turn into a big mat of English ivy. So I think that was a cool victory, and we'll see what happens. So we'll kind of come back to that as we progress to the left. So now we're basically working from Margaret due east, kind of along I call it the Mountain Watch Trail, which I think everybody's utilizes. It's
We call it the Acres Trail.
sorry,
Social trail.
social trail.
Yes.
Sorry.
Social.
Yes.
I
And
perjured myself.
It's
right
called the Acres Trail.
there. Acres Trail.
Yeah.
So the social trail, Acres Trail, is very helpful. It actually gets this really good access for the areas we need to work. So along that trail, just east and uphill from where the acacia was moved, there's quite a bit of ivy still.
Yeah.
And in the general Margaret vicinity, we've pretty much removed it to the point that you get to the parcels that you don't own. So we basically decided to push it down to the social trail and use the social trail as a break. And there was actually quite a large patch growing up into an oak tree that we found. Kind of on the social trail, there's a relatively recent redwood footbridge that goes over a little drainage, if you can call that area. Pretty much directly uphill from that, through the brush, was a large patch of English ivy that we removed. And then the ivy becomes more and more, mat forming the farther down the trail you get. But I believe that's getting into, parcels that you don't know.
Well, if you keep going down, it goes all the way down to Costañas Canyon.
Yeah, exactly.
And
So
this is the area that the slide in 1982 from the top of the mountain all the way came down.
okay,
And
that's before my time.
I know it scoured that, and that's what caused some of those canyons to be so vulnerable for ivy and allowed the ivy to go all the way up.
Was that from rain?
Yes, we had a huge landslide.
Oh, I didn't know that.
It started way
I
up,
know.
up the top and came all the way down through this area and then down all the way through Costanhas Canyon and into a house on right there.
There you go.
So it was a major, major landslide.
Yeah, there's certainly no shortage of English ivy in the town of Brisbane, and
Ah.
it does produce fruit, and so any fruit-eating frugivorous bird will disperse it through the mountain, just like the cotoneasters and the pyrocanthas and the myoperums. I mean, there's a lot that gets around the mountain because of probably mostly robins. Anyway, so it'll be a perennial problem. There is still Earharta grass right along the trail, which is probably a signature of the disturbance and people walking through there. We spray it each year. There's not a lot, and we're just trying to maintain as little as possible. But I think, again, that's also going to be something that's so common and prevalent in the town.
So common.
It's, you are the good first line to keep it out of the park property, but it will be difficult depending on, usage patterns, people, dogs, just people. The more people you get, sometimes this is the type of weed you would expect to have more of. So, just a note.
Does spraying work?
Yeah, it's actually very susceptible to glyphosate at really, really low percentages. We can spray it at like 0.25% glyphosate.
Okay.
The problem is it needs repeated treatments like every 2 to 3 weeks. And, we're not on the acres enough to really like hit it, like a large population sense. And I don't know of any people that have been successful just because of the repetition that's required. It's one of those things that has a very, very high reproductive cycle, and small juvenile plants can be sexually mature and set seed in weeks. So you just to break that cycle, you have to be frequent. It's not difficult to kill like the plant itself, but it's difficult to have the frequency to really have something meaningful accomplished. They've tried really hard at Muir Woods, and they finally gave up. Sure. And that was like, a very high priority conservation area, National Park Service, but it's just the repetition required. It's just really hard to manage and very costly.
That's too bad.
So it's one of the very few invasive plants we have in redwood understory. So, most of our redwood understory is very, very shade tolerant, and so not a lot of weeds can exploit that. Very specialized, highly evolved plants that are native tend to do very well there. Not very many natives, and that's one of the very few. So it is a priority in those particular instances.
What's that grass called again?
Earharta grass, Stebbins grass. That's named after a professor in Berkeley. I don't know if that's really. I don't like to call it that because it kind of puts a bad name on the poor professor who is a really good.
Isn't it also called velvet grass?
Velt, VELDT of
Oh.
the South African. Velvet is different. Velvet is Holcus lanatus, which is your more coastal prairie, full sun-loving, invasive perennial grass. You have it on the mountain too, but in more your grassland areas, your open, full sun areas.
Okay.
Also, very difficult to
Get rid of.
manage. That was the plant that pretty much took over the gorse treatment area when the county funded the gorse removal on the saddle, like
Which is
10
coming
years
back
ago.
in like spades.
Really?
Oh, have you been up there this year?
All over up there.
But in the actual restoration zone? That's too bad.
Have you hiked the trail in the saddle? Seen gorse up there? I just see it by the side, both sides of Guadalupe
Both sides of the
Canyon.
road and making its way down in
On the
Wax
south side of
myrtle.
the.
and all over up there. They should have never left a piece of it.
Well, yeah.
But it's really coming back fast, especially in the last year.
Especially this year.
Well, with all the rain.
And Jubata grass too.
Yeah.
So here it is again, just kind of moving. We're going to jump over to 98 now, and that's where we've done a lot of effort in the real rainy season. So we had a hard time working for you guys, for everybody, with the rain this year.
Yeah.
So in general, our treatments are fairly herbicide dependent often, and so there's a limited scope of work we can do that's not herbicide, and it rained every day for 3 months this winter. So it was a challenging winter to do weed management for sure. This is the trail again, the social trail that goes up from Firth Canyon and up to Parcel 98, and then connects with some county trails that go up the ridge near either the water tank or to the east in the Herald Road area. We've been spraying this broom, and I think that's what I really wanted to show you guys. And it's still kind of a mess. So the trail every year, even with spray, is obscured with dead broom. So this year we decided to just remove the dead broom and pull it. And it also allowed us to do some work in the rain. So that's kind of why we focused on this area, because this was the other major area that last year I couldn't get in there. We sprayed it once. So this is just down from that trail in another little swale drainage area. What happens when you spray the big patches of broom is they create great nursery habitat for recruiting the young broom, and then it's very hard to get back to treat. So even though that first herbicide treatment is very successful and cost effective, you're left with kind of a mess. So we've gone in there and after a couple years it starts to decay, and we can just knock it down, stack it, pile it, and chainsaw buck the piles so we can gain access to do the retreatment. And that's what we did this year. It's just cleaning it up.
So you don't do much of the pulling then? Mostly it's chemical.
Well, both.
Or broom?
Yeah, but I mean, this year with the rain, we did in focused areas, like when we were in there already, moving the dead broom out, we were also pulling all the sprouts.
The new ones.
We couldn't.
So easy to
couldn't
pull.
spray. Yeah, and it's
was
wet.
easy to
We didn't even do weed wrenches, so it just. I mean, because they're small.
Yeah.
The soil was just super wet.
Yeah.
Like all these little drainages are actually
Yeah.
flowing, which we never see.
Well, not
So
here.
yeah. So it was definitely an opportunity to do some different stuff. But up on the hill slope, which is your larger parcel areas, it's kind of mixed mosaic of grass and coyote brush mostly. And what we really found this year is 2016 was the last time we really focused on cotoneaster, and going back up there, it really has come back. And that's a combination. So we do stump treat them, but I'll show you the kind of effects that happen when you cut them. There's so many cotoneaster berries that fall that they just keep growing.
Yeah.
So I was actually a little surprised how much cotoneaster remained. Almost no pines. And in 2015, 16, when we started working on this area, it was mostly pines and cotoneaster was our focus. And so the pines are pretty much gone, but the cotoneaster has rebounded. So I would say that it's like the eucalyptus. It's, I think, a long-term plan. Probably needs, I was giving it a couple of years thinking it was okay. It probably needs an annual maintenance.
Plus at the berries, the birds, right?
Yes, but I think these berries are actually coming from the footprint of the plants so the adult plants that we remove, the footprint is full of, seeds. And so that's what's recruiting. So it's just kind of regenerating mostly from a close proximity seed rain, they call it. But this is what we do to them. We cut them down and buck them down, and that's kind of an after shot. And, that's what I'm worried about, though, is because there's really bare ground, and what comes in is the cotoneaster berries. So the stump is treated with herbicide. What we've started to shift to is herbicide with a little bit more residual soil activity. So we used to use like Garlon more because it's just a good basic woody plant herbicide. But now we're using a Mazapir in an oil formulation, which does have a soil residual activity, and it's in hopes to kind of stunt this seedling recruitment. It'll stay bare, which is a temporary consequence of that herbicide, but give it 2 years and it'll be full of annual grasses again. So at least it will be. So it's and we don't use that everywhere because it really depends on how many natives are also around. So we'll usually have both products with this, and if it's just like a sea of cotoneaster, we know it's pretty much that's all it's going to be for a while. We'll use a Mazapir. If it's just a single cotoneaster and there's lots of natives underneath it, we would use like Roundup or Garland. And this is actually an older picture, but it just shows you we still have this summer, May, June, when it dries out, to go up and do the same thing on fennel. So fennel, it's too early for fennel. So this is a bad picture from this year, but kind of a before and after. There's actually a dead cotoneaster in the back, and this smaller cotoneaster in the front. And then we knocked that down, and then you could see the old dead skeleton, and then there's a pile of fresh cotoneaster. Sorry, it's a little bright, and the picture's not that great, but
Yeah.
but unless you knew what you're looking for, you would never know. But we removed a lot of cotoneaster. We spent almost a week doing just cotoneaster removal.
Wow.
And this is cool. This is
Dead lady.
I think that's also a silene, that little pink flower. I can't quite tell. And there's a Cena in there too. So this was a little rock outcrop right under a cotoneaster. So it is kind of cool. Like the removal of that one invasive shrub will hopefully allow this little rock garden to persist as it should. With no intervention, no planting, anything necessary. Just remove the cotoneaster, and that's really what we want. It's kind of a cool area up there in terms of the vegetation is all over the place. Some of it's really not. This is just to show it's not really great candidacy for converting back to grassland. It wants to be shrub, and this is like an understory of the pineapple sage or the Salvia spathacea. And where we see this, we know it doesn't really convert back to grassland. So it is a pretty rich, diverse shrubland and shrub understory with a lot of diversity. And there's a lot of coffeeberry and artemisia. So it's not just coyote brush.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't think it's a good focal point for any sort of real brush removal because it is really brushy. But I think it's still a good high diversity native scrubland. It just needs less cotoneaster. And again, here's just another shot of they get really big really fast. Again, these are like 3-year-old plants.
Yeah.
So
Really big, really fast.
and that's just kind of
Rains.
spanning the same. This was actually when we first started with you. I think can't remember. I think it was August or September. We were doing this work, and we had. You can remember the bad air quality days.
Yeah.
That's the
Oh,
smoke.
yeah.
So we had to actually cut some of our days short because the staff was
Agreed.
just
Yeah.
not wanting to be outside. So that was another impediment. And this is just a cool shot. This is in the same vicinity. One of the pine saplings, that's a nacella growing out of the pine bark, which will not probably live very long, but it is kind of a cool. You can I offer this picture for your marketing
Viewing
campaign.
pleasure.
In the wake of pine trees come native grasses. So. And this is just, we stayed away from Firth Canyon in the wet because I didn't want to mess with any of that steep slope, doing vegetation management this first major year after it. So much rain, and I just wanted to make sure everything held together. But Karen did mention you guys were interested in the rare plants that we do see, and I can't remember if I ever put a picture of this is the philostoma, the fiesta flower, that purple plant. And I did not get a chance to up there to see it when it would be in bloom this time of year, so I don't know how it did. I'm assuming it's still there because it would only do better without all that ivy. But I'm curious to see how that is a problem. Yeah, the Arharta is a problem. So, but it's persisting. It's it's a tough, weedy native. It just needs a little bit of help and then it'll go. So I feel like Firth is a long-term goal. You guys definitely took a big chunk of responsibility there, and I think it's cool, but it'll take some time to see kind of how things shuffle out and what are your secondary priorities in the future years, and will it get revegetated on its own, or will it need some supplementation, that kind of thing? Because you've done quite a bit of re-vegging castaños, correct?
Yeah, Castaños.
Not that much. It was kind of it needs more.
Okay.
It was a bit project based. It needs more.
But more will come, probably.
Yeah.
Build it, they will come, kind of thing.
Yeah. And then we're also now adopting the next canyon over.
Oh, you guys are you're canyon crazy.
We have to save the canyons. If we don't save the canyons, we lose the canopy. The ivy look at Costañas Canyon. It was hanging in the balance
Oh, my goodness.
for a long time. And there were restoration days where all we could do was get the ivy off the trees.
That was crazy when
Yeah.
we rolled that down the hill.
And, and it saved the trees. And now we were able, with your help, to do the canyon all the way up. And we need to stay vigilant on it or we're going to lose it again. And so, we've moved on to Sierra Point Canyon, the one
Okay.
that, you know, the lower canyon and then the upper canyon we started on last year and got an amazing amount done with volunteers in the one day. Way more than we thought. Volunteers and employees.
Yeah.
So we got way more done than we ever expected. As a matter of fact, I was going to ask, did we look to see how it fared in the wet, in terms of,
I haven't been.
because we were kind of worried because we really stripped it. It's this steep walled. The upper canyon is steep walled,
But-
but we have a long way to go all the way from Humboldt up to Kings, and then it goes on up from there.
Well, I'm not an engineer, but from what I know, like, you know, those big trees that remain, you know, really do anchor.
Yeah.
You know, they're really deep tap rooted. And
Yeah.
so they are, and plus the full canopies buffer the actual rain impacts. And so as long as you preserve your good woody plants, whether they be trees or shrubs, I think that really helps the soil stability.
Have you seen ivy coming back into Firth yet?
Not much. I mean, we were just there not too long ago, a couple weeks ago, maybe 2.5 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, and everything was holding up, erosion control fabric wise. There was a lot of weeds, you know, like annual grasses and stuff really popping through there. Earharta for sure. There's a lot of Earharta. We definitely like. I mean, there's all these secondary effects, just like the gorse removal on the saddle. Like we gave great habitat for holcus to invade. You know, yes, no gorse, but you end up with this completely, you know, 100% cover of, you know, holcus. So not quite restored, but it's a step in that direction.
Yeah.
And I think that'll be similar here. You know, you remove the ivy and you get lots of Earharta grass, and then so you kind of peel the layers of the onion until you get where you want to go. So, and it's hard to predict. Like, that won't always happen. You kind of have to let the site dictate what will happen before you have too much planning and intervention. So, in my opinion, that's my soft approach. So, the water tanks, that was our most recent work for you guys that we left on just last month. And there wasn't a whole lot to do there. It's actually, I think, it's one of the sites we've worked on the longest.
Yeah.
So, you know, it should look good.
It was the first restoration they ever did, like way back when.
I mean, there's still broom, there's still cotoneaster, but, you know, it takes just a day or two of effort to stay on top of it. And I feel like that's kind of where you're going to get to it for all the acres at some point, where it takes a very minimal annual intervention. So,
There's a lot of scabiosa up by the water tanks for a while. Is it still
it is still there. We have pulled that for you in the past, but we've seen no net effect.
increase?
Well, in terms of decrease. And mostly I think because you know, it's like a donut hole of scabiosa surrounded by the county's population of scabiosa. So I can only do so much in your property without it just coming right back from
Sure.
the counties. And
And
the
the
county
county's
definitely
gonna-
doesn't manage it.
They're not going to manage scabies. So.
So my recommendation for you is to not pursue that because it's kind of beyond your control
Yeah.
without like a joint effort. It would have been a great weed to deal with like 15, 18, 20 years ago when one was barely around. But it seems a little late now. And I haven't really seen pure dense stands of scabiosa. So it's definitely present, but I haven't seen it like really take over. So I don't know.
Yeah.
But we have limits anyway. So Harold Road is again far east side now, and we haven't got there yet. So that will be our next sort of May and June focus work. And then we'll go back over all the properties for fennel in the grassland areas, so the top parts of everything, which is just a little bit of Margaret, actually, quite a bit of the water tank, and kind of the core, I call it like the 98 zone, has a lot of fennel.
Yeah.
But that's just, these are just older pictures to remind you what Harold Road looks like. That's the entrance, which is not very, in terms of like a public access, it's very inaccessible.
Yeah.
And then once you get up from that steep scramble of rocky slope, you end up in a sea of Monterey pines.
Are we removing those?
No, I mean, these are big pines. These are big pines. So this would be like more of a tree contractor. And talk about neighbors who want privacy. There's
Yeah.
there's definitely some.
Don't get shot.
It's a different
Yes, you
it's a different vibe in my opinion. Working on that side,
It is.
like lots of no trespassing signs. This is a private road sign. What are you doing here, sign? Oh, you know, when people see you. So it's your backwoods part of Brisbane.
Yes, it is.
So we like try to keep a low profile actually. So people are like
So don't get shot.
not supportive of our work always. But this is what it looks like. It's largely this mosaic of brush and grassland. But I always like to remind you guys that's also where I think your best grasslands are too.
Do you need us to, notify the residents in that area that you're coming? And that you're there for a good reason?
Well, I just kind of work around it. I mean, we have access through the county. Ramona, through our site activity permit process, allows us to use the county road on the ridge to access your property. So we have permission to do that from the county, and sometimes I'll just do that.
And so far, you haven't had anybody really get in your.
We had one incident, and it was really my fault. So, I mean, I take responsibility for, being too promotive of French broom removal when someone really wanted French broom in there, along the road. So, but that was my mistake, and, we take responsibility for that.
Let
So,
us know who wants the French broom. We'll have a conversation. Yeah. Strong.
So we just kind of avoid it that way. I mean, you can almost stir up more stuff if you notice
True.
people that you're going to cut down trees and
When they start.
open it up and invite the public. But it's up to you. But I think we can work around it.
All right, if you do have.
We're not compromised by that in any
Okay.
way.
If you have anything that we can help with, let us know.
You got it.
And where do you think it's best to focus the rest of the efforts for this year, other than Harold?
I mean,
Sleep.
Harold going back over, just making sure we're addressing the fennel. That was my plan. And then,
Can we do like a
Eh.
ivy check for the upper costañas and Earth and?
the other thing is what we'll get to right here at the end. Because this is sort of what I consider your highest quality of grasslands in terms
Right.
of diversity. This is what we kind of deal with every year is the small recruiting broom. I'll just kind of skim through this because you've seen these pictures before.
Is there any easily accessible areas of small broom that you'd want us to bring a targeted group of volunteers to pull?
I think that Upper Firth Canyon Parcel 98 has the best access and quite a bit of room. So if you wanted to do something that was really accessible, you could just continue what we started this year and pulling broom along the trail, pulling broom just off the trail. I mean, I won't name names, but there's other entities out there that are not me that also pull broom frequently because we see piles of
Broom.
freshly
It's so
pulled
hard
broom.
to even hike up there and not want to just pull,
Right.
and then I find my hours.
So already the community at some level is
Oh yeah.
engaged
Oh yeah.
in that.
We have a
So
couple of people who that's their favorite thing to do.
So I'd say that I just think it's good for you because it's accessible,
Uh-huh.
and a lot of your acres are not accessible.
Right.
Are there any limitations on people going up and removing stuff on their own?
Not for me. That would
Okay.
be
I
that would be
don't know.
Only if it's on somebody's property.
I think on the county part there are.
But on the
On the
county,
county
land,
land
yeah.
there is, yeah, because I know,
But what are you going to do? Get your hands off?
yeah. Okay.
The county does have a process, I believe. It's been a while since I've talked to Ramona and know about her community engagement process, but I think there was a point that they were certifying people, like Chuck and Loretta on the other side of the
Yeah.
South City side, that if you have a relationship established with the county and you go through a process, you are then entitled, as long as you probably report or.
There is no formal roving weed warrior program that we had talked about. To the best of my knowledge, there is not one.
Okay.
Chuck and Loretta, have a site activity permit. Mountain Watch has site activity.
The county loves permits. I'll give them that.
Yeah. Are you working with Ramona and coordinating with her, letting her know what our plan is and everything? Or,
I mean, every year you get a site activity permit, and this year Bob helped make sure we got it right.
okay.
And it was Ramona's staff person, Hannah.
Oh, okay.
Really is kind of the one that
Yeah.
manages that mostly. And that's what I was going to actually, my last thing I wanted to bring up is by the water tank, you have this brush removal that we started as a pilot. And it's still in our scope for this year as well. And then I proposed to Karen that we revisit actually moving the pilot over to Harold, because I think the grasslands are higher quality and it's better benefit to them. In the past, Ramona, and that was, to be fair to the county, that's right when Ramona started, and she was concerned that I think the Helianthella, which is a rare plant that occurs in that vicinity, supposedly, could be compromised. But at that time, I don't think anyone in the county knew where the Helianthella was, and so they've since had a couple RFPs out for hiring a botanist. I don't know where they are in that process and if they have really identified where all the rare plants are. I hear little tidbits from like Doug Owl's house and some of the other, Jake Saig and people that kind of routinely work, on these kinds of things. But my proposal this year was to revisit that conversation with Ramona when we get to the brush removal part and just see if we can update that site activity. Because the site activity permit that we get in the beginning is pretty generic. I just send them like the summary of what we do for you, a basic map, and that's really it. And then they just kind of say, okay, continue to do that. So just to be fair to them, because they brought it up as an issue before, kind of revisiting that. Mm-hmm. And I think we'd all benefit from knowing if anyone knows where the Helianthella was, that would benefit everyone, because then we could avoid it or support the.
I think Doug and Dave have been mapping it and communicating that.
Right. I mean, they've been working on the flora, and I know that they're very focused on the rare plants. I just don't know where they're at.
Okay.
So, or if it even occurs. From my understanding, that's a plant that it's a subspecies that might need to do genetic analysis at this time and day and age to see if it's the rare one or not. Because back in the day when it was determined rare, it was just based on the taxonomic visual deciphering. When the original flora was done, right? And that was a long time ago. So anyway, that's my kind of last proposal for kind of wrapping up scope, and that would we like to do that in June. That's when we find we get best efficacy for the cut stump treatments of broom. So that would be on the horizon, and then it would either be back at the water tank just to continue what you've already started, or if the county consents.
Do we have enough to do both?
I would recommend sticking with one area. I mean, we've already knocked the broom out of the water tank. It's quite a bit of work to remove, not broom, sorry, coyote brush. Mm-hmm. And I think it'd be important for you guys, because you're interested in it, to review the county's annual plan to see how, they have been pushing native brush removal really hard now for the last couple years as a priority, ever since the big review of the work plan came out from Stu Weiss. So I think revisiting that and looking at cost benefits are really important. I see a number of agencies very interested in native brush removal. Mid-Peninsula Regional Open Space just did a brush management plan on their coast side, or a brush management sort of pilot, like just trying to determine what methods are even possible in California with the kind of rare and endangered species that you have to work around to do brush removal. It's not Texas, right? Texas and Oklahoma are the two states that do tremendous amounts of brush removal for economic gain. So remove brush, graze cows, produce more beef. Therefore, there's a direct link to removing brush to increase income on your property. So they have it down to a science that's very cost effective. But California, much different plants, many more regulations for water quality, for erosion control, for rare and endangered species that we have to work around. And so kind of finding a template that works for brush removal is really, really difficult. And so I helped write the plan for Mid-Penn, and we didn't have, there's no like, miracle brush removal, cure. There's lots of complicated methods that are really expensive. Pick one, and be prepared for a long-term investment. So the San Francisco watershed is also doing that as part of their biohabitat restoration program, which is off-site mitigation for their $4 billion of pipeline upgrades that they just did from Hetch Hetchy, which includes some of the pipelines in the mountain. So they have a lot of brush removal to generate more grassland that would benefit things like mission blue butterflies as part of their off-site rare endangered species, mitigation stuff. And they're still working out how do we kill brush. It's super expensive, and
You've been doing it for a long time, Mark. I mean, what is your opinion?
of what I'd like to see. Well, what worked really well in the 70s was all the farmers on the coast side used to get together and hire a helicopter, and then they would chip in to bring the helicopter in, and then the helicopter would spray everybody's ranch with 2,4-D. That generated tremendous amounts of grassland. Whether or not that's the ideal way to go or not, I'm not sure. But in terms of cost,
240 exactly?
2,4-D.
Oh,
that's old school 1960s herbicide. So you could update the herbicide with something more environmentally friendly and palatable but it's still, big machines flying in the sky distributing herbicide.
What about goats? Will goats eat that?
Goats defoliate, but they don't do anything to the woody plant tissue. So you're kind of manipulating. We consider it like a manipulation of the structure, but you don't really go anywhere. You don't actually defeat the brush.
So what about, I mean, I know you've done a lot of like cut and treat stump treatment.
Yes, that works. If you have like $1 billion to, so I mean, it's just drive to Santa Cruz on Highway 1 and just look.
So scary.
I mean, it's all coyote brush. I would say prescribed fire has, with the recent politics surrounding fire today, which is unfortunate because, we've had so many of these mega disasters surrounding fire. But finally, regulators and communities are becoming, more receptive to the idea of, prescribed fire.
Yeah.
So Mid-Penn is pursuing that
We're trying.
for that reason,
Yeah.
because they're looking at pesticide, they're looking at mechanical, and they're also looking at fire. So Mid-Penn is actually commissioning a big, like, programmatic EIR for burning, mostly for brush control. Because they have a mandate to maintain economic productivity on the rangelands that they inherit often from post or donations or however it works. But part of their mandate is to maintain, just like same thing in West Marin with the National Park Service. It's not just conservation; it's like dual use. It's conservation and this historical agricultural usage of these lands, and that's a hard thing to remedy sometimes, especially with methods that everybody can agree on and can afford.
Yeah.
But yeah, so many. This is a low-growing, prostrate form of brush that we deal with. Whether it's coyote brush or the whole community of coyote brush and coffeeberry and coastal sage. You can't just use a big chain to knock it down like they do in Texas. So there's certain methods that are used elsewhere on the continent that just don't really fit California. And again, we got tough native plants. They got the toughest native plants in the country. So you got to work with that. So I just caution the pursuit of brush management, and that you temper that with looking at what everyone else is doing, so you're spending your money wisely. Because it is very in vogue now. I'll give you that. Everyone wants to control coyote brush.
And no one wants to use fire, especially on San Bruno Mountain.
Everyone wants to use fire, but it's just
I want to. I mean,
Also,
we
costs. You know,
yeah.
in the past, when the county, when Sam Herzberg was in charge of the Mountain HCP, you know, they tried multiple burns with full participation of CAL FIRE, and they had to hire all these consultants to do all these plans, and they had to pay all these agencies all these permit fees, and ultimately everything was always canceled. So it's like you put up all this money and nothing
Not able to
happens.
do anything.
And I see that a lot. I see that a lot all the time, and it's hard to kind of when you're you know, someone like the town of Brisbane, you know, are you going to put all this money into a dream that the project might happen if the regulators consent in the last minute? So it's a tough sell to like do all that up front.
Yeah, Mountain Watch was really heavily asking the county about fire. We had one board member who's really into like, we need to bring fire back to the mountain as a tool. You know, it's really the best management tool for grassland, yada, 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 yada. And the county has just shut him down so fast, you know. But they are thinking about doing it at Edgewood, you know, Mid-Penn.
Yep.
But it's a different situation there.
The only place in California I know that people have had some success is Jeff Stackhouse is a UC advisor through, you know, ANR, the UC Extension Service in Humboldt County. And he's a specialist in rangeland and dairies. And he has kind of helped the community organize. And they have kind of like a fire safe group that then got into, well, if we're a fire safe group, let's be a burn group. So they all collaborate and share each other's, you know, individual ranch resources, like human resources, and work with local fire departments to burn their own ranches. But you have a lot more capacity when it's private land than when it's public land. But they actually are doing a lot of burning specifically to improve rangeland by removing coyote brush, because it's basically the same plant community, more or less, right? That's on the coastal terrace prairies of Humboldt County, southern Humboldt County. So, but they're doing it on private lands. It's private ranch lands.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. That helps. Thank you. Helps to understand. And, you know, we really value your expertise, Mark. We really do, and your experience doing this. Helping us spend our money as wisely as we can and get the best bang for our buck. So
Cool. I'm slightly conservative on the spending money thing, so hopefully that doesn't get me out of a job. But I always like to just put it on the table.
I mean, it is. I mean, what are you gonna do?
well, you know,
There's plenty of work to do.
we invest a lot, and we don't want our you know, and we know it's a long-term plan. I think everybody knows it's a long-term plan.
And that's the key.
We don't want to backslide
Yeah.
by being penny wise and pound foolish. And so we want to keep moving forward, and we want to have goals, and we want to accomplish, you know, areas of cleanup. I mean, you know, years ago when we started on Costañas Canyon, I never thought we'd get to where we are now. Yeah. But we did. But we kept pushing, because every little bit helps, and to just keep moving forward on it. And the same thing with what we're doing with the acres, you know. So
I have a question for you. Do you ever hear feedback from our work from people in the community? Like, do people? I mean, I know it's hard to detect. It's it's always hard to sell something that almost no one can see, right? You know, like, oh yeah, we went out
hiking.
Yeah.
But I'm just curious if you ever get feedback from people that are like, hey, who's cutting down the trees, or
I think what you get is a lack of negative comments.
that's
actually, I probably hear more of it than other people do
Yeah.
because of my association with Mountain Watch.
Right.
And I do get positive comments, and positive comments from the county,
okay.
and positive comments from people who know what they're looking at.
Okay. That's good.
There's a
And
good-
then I also get comments like, why don't you clean up that canyon? And I'm like, we're working
always
on it. Come Saturday, you know. So, I mean, people are aware.
Okay, good.
They are
I mean, that's all. I mean, it's always hard to do work, like I said, that no one ever notices.
No.
Without, like, taking people out and...
They really
Don't
do.
do it.
People really do notice. I hear about it from various people who hike up there or go there, or they're like, you know.
What about doing just a write up in the Star once, just to kind of
That's a good
raise
idea.
public awareness, and that might sort of help some of the people in the more fringe, in the back 40 who are maybe a little, without sort of putting them on the spot. Just
Letting
sort of,
them know what it is we're doing.
yeah,
so
just
when they
kinda-
don't want their broom to be removed.
yeah.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah, like not getting confrontational with them because they do have some property rights.
It's hard.
But, you know,
I think that's a good idea. I think we
Yeah.
should do it.
start putting the thought out there that maybe there's a different plant that you could cultivate on your property.
And it's really hard. You see wildflower pictures on Facebook, and it's broom and oxalis. Just, do you say anything?
Yeah.
You know, it's a hard one.
Yep.
They're like,
'Cause-
oh, look at these pretty flowers, and you're like, ew.
Yeah.
Yeah, the job I'm doing just was today as I was spraying a whole giant 4-acre field of capeweed, which is like a really beautiful daisy. And it's a property that's for sale. So people are coming in, oh my God, it's beautiful. And then the county's having us, like, because it's a A-rated noxious weed, so the property owner is actually legally mandated to eliminate it from their property. But the people that are looking at the house don't understand, because it's like this beautiful super bloom of daisies around this house, and then we're spraying it, which is I get it, like it's gorgeous, right? It's gorgeous.
For a nanosecond, and while it wipes out everything else.
Right. I
How
mean,
do we legally mandate more?
talk to Fred Crowder at the Ag Department. I think you're limited about, the state laws. You would have to be more aggressive in getting state laws to make weeds like a public nuisance.
Well, we're working on it. I mean,
Yeah.
Bob's
we are.
been attending the weed group,
Mm-hmm.
and with the county ag people, and
Maybe we could get Weiner on it.
Speaking of which, we're having Picnic in the Weeds with the Weed Management Agency coming on May 20th. And we were going to take them to the canyons and show them the work we've done, but you're doing a mighty fine presentation. You have any interest in giving a tour to all the big players in the cemetery?
Yeah, I can do it. You generally a tour. Is it a work day or?
Monday,
Yeah, it's
May
a
20th.
Monday, and then we're going to have lunch at Mission Blue. It's about 10:30 till, or 10 until 12:30-ish.
Yeah.
Don't mind.
Send me the date. I'll check it out.
I will, but yeah, let me know, because I'm watching your presentation, scribbling notes, and
Okay.
anyway, it'd be a chance to showcase your work with a lot of people that are highly interested.
Cool. Yeah, I know many of them at San Mateo County, but for sure.
All right, yeah, I'll follow up.
Okay.
Great.
That's awesome.
Cool.
Thank you, Mark.
All right. Well, thank you
Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
for letting me do the work.
Thanks for
Your
sticking around.
presentation
And-
was on point.
Very good.
Sorry, couldn't help it.
Good. Thank you.
Thanks, Mark.
Thanks, Mark.
Okay.
If Weiner can outlaw single-family homes, maybe he could outlaw some weeds too.
Yeah, really. All right.
Okay.
Feeling snarky.
I move that we approve the March minutes.
I had wanted to. Sorry, I forgot to email. We'd also discussed attending. I just saw the note at the bottom about Michelle's question, and then we'd also talked about the Climate Action Plan conference. So I thought,
Oh, yeah, and that wasn't in the minutes.
yeah. So if we could just add that to the minutes.
Oh, no, we talked about the open space call.
Yeah, but we also talked about the Climate Action Planning.
Climate action.
We did, and
I'd asked about that.
I forgot about
And we were looking at Adrienne and I were looking at the website to see if the thing was up
it.
yet,
hadn't
and it
been up yet,
wasn't.
Yeah.
Could we budget a few dollars for a card for Ramona with congratulations? It's a little late, but
oh, yeah.
I just think it would be nice.
She had a baby.
Yeah.
She was out on maternity leave for several months, and
Oh,
That's right. I remember.
she's back now.
Mm-hmm.
sure. Send her a little.
She-
You guys all want to sign something?
Yeah. If maybe, I mean, it might be a shame to let it go to the next meeting, but I don't.
You could always, if you get a card, we could all stop by.
When's
Yeah.
the next quarterly meeting, or when's the?
The 15th. Yeah.
I don't know either.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I do remember when Mary retired, she wanted for her retirement present for us to all go up there and help her with her landscaping. And that was so many years ago. And I haven't forgotten Mary. I have not
He hasn't
forgotten.
shown any inclination to follow up on it, though.
I know, but I haven't forgotten. I remember. I still consider it on my list of obligations.
Okay.
How many years ago?
So now with the correction, I move we approve the minutes for March.
I'll second.
Great. Everybody in favor?
Aye.
All right. Minutes are approved for March with the addition. Okay, subcommittee reports.
Well, the two other members of the open space subcommittee aren't here tonight, but Karen sent a wonderful note inviting them to speak up about when we can meet. So hopefully they will.
I had to work through the last climate action plan meeting, so Glenn will have to take this one.
So we discussed staff training and also the benchmarking ordinance, and Adrian and Karen organized a really nice workshop on the benchmarking ordinance, which was last week? Losing track of time. Which seemed pretty well attended. It was also very interesting, especially the comments that people made me think this is not going to be easy. One, Alistair, what was his last name, Adrian?
Hood.
Alistair Hood, who's a consultant. I ended up sitting at his table with Karen after the presentations were over. And he actually said something interesting, which is that a lot of times people responded to these ordinances not by getting ambitious and making a lot of changes, but by checking off boxes, saying they'd done their benchmarking. And that's not satisfactory to us, so it made me think we really need to figure out incentives for people taking action on what the benchmarking reveals to them. That was my big takeaway from the event. But I thought it was really good, and people seemed interested, and it was nicely organized, and thank you.
This is the benchmarking.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, you were there.
Yeah, I was there.
I have just started reviewing the feedback. I have to say I was not particularly surprised nor all that concerned by those type of comments because of some of the things that we are considering for the ordinance that we didn't really get into in this first workshop. You know, we really wanted this to be a introduction to benchmarking and a conversation about, values and what people want to see. We're really going to be diving into much more of those details and how we get people to take actions in the next workshop. So.
Yeah, I know we are. It just, I don't know, part of me keeps thinking if you show people information about how they can save money, they're going to do it, but they don't.
I thought one of the things that was very interesting was what the guy from PG&E said about in some of the problems they've had in San Francisco, where there are well-meaning business owners that actually do want to make those improvements, especially a lot of the low-hanging fruit. But the second they start, there's thresholds, and as soon as they cross certain thresholds in making improvements in their building, all of a sudden the law kicks in and they're expected to bring it up to current code, and they can't afford to do that. So they end up not doing anything at all, or not being able to do what we want them to do without incurring so much more debt in doing what they would have to do if they passed the threshold. So I think when we craft our ordinances for Brisbane, we should be very cognizant of that and try to, have some variation there depending on the age of the different buildings and what the triggers are that, I think we need to be really sensitive about that, because my biggest takeaway is I think that they have a serious marketing problem and PR problem with the benchmarking, and not understanding the benefit that they as a business could get from actually doing the work and doing the exercise and finding out where they're bleeding money through energy. I also felt like the stats that they showed, and I put it on my evaluation, that the stats that they showed were very one-dimensional and not comparative to when they say, oh, we did this for 90,000 households, out of how many? Or the one that really bothered me was where they said that California uses like $42.5 billion of energy a year. But then a little while later they were saying, oh, and this organization has saved $75 billion in energy in California since we started in 1978. What? That's 40 years and you've only saved $75 billion worth of energy through this program when we're using $42.5 billion worth of energy a year. That we have a problem.
Well, but overall energy use would include things like transportation, not just buildings.
No,
So-
I know. Yeah. But 75 billion over 40 years compared to the
No.
42.5 billion we use a year.
We have a lot of work to do.
Yeah.
We have a huge amount of work to do.
Yeah.
A tremendous amount of work.
So, but it was a really good effort, and I thought you could have done better, Adrian, than they did. You're a much better presenter. So that's my personal opinion.
Okay.
Events, Day in the
Events,
Park and
events.
Habitat Restoration Days. April 27th,
Yes.
just a short week and a half away. We have a huge Habitat Restoration Day up on the mountain at Monarch and Mission Blue. And it's from 9:30 in the morning until 12:30 in the afternoon, right? And it includes a T-shirt, yes, and lunch, yes, and it should be sweet pulling weeds because the ground is still wet. So please, please, everybody come. Tell your friends. Invite your friends for a day in Brisbane. Do some Tom Sawyer work here and get everybody to come.
And then come to Spring Thing in the evening.
Yeah, and then come to Spring Thing in the evening, and Megan will make you an amazing cocktail.
Oh my gosh, the best cocktails this year.
Oh my God! Should we have a little ticket for anybody who shows up at
Yeah.
Habitat Restoration?
I'll
We'll
get
get a
'em
free
all.
drink.
I'll get them all a free drink coupon.
Okay.
I will.
All right, let's do it. We can put that on there. Show up and work for at least an hour or two, and you get a free drink at Spring Thing. Huh? Yeah. Yeah. That
I'm
would.
gonna try. We got a lot of setup to do, but
I know, Megan.
I missed the last one because I had to work.
Same thing.
Dang.
Yeah. Education and outreach.
We have yet to meet. I am just absolutely buried, and Mary, as you can see, is not here. So we have a lot of education and outreach to do, but we haven't really done much lately.
So I will just chime in on this and say I have been a little bit slacking on this committee's efforts as well, but I have a plan to help us that involves a summer intern.
Oh, yay.
Terrific.
So we are looking to hire a sustainability intern, and their focus is primarily going to be on various education and outreach activities. Some
Great.
of that will be related to the benchmarking ordinance, but some of that will be some of our more long-term, ongoing education and outreach efforts. So I reviewed 34 applications this afternoon, and
Wow.
we have some excellent candidates.
Great.
Cool.
Like anybody from San Francisco State? I posted it.
I think actually quite a few.
Ah,
Yay.
Yeah.
Go,
Good.
Glenn.
And then-
Plus, we have to look at the new library when it's open and what we're going to do there with OSAC.
Invasive species ordinance is on hold until Barbara finishes her big project, and then we can meet. So look towards like
June.
June.
yeah, where we'll start sitting down and going, let's hammer some of this out.
And then the festival tree replacement. What is that? Where are we next? Waiting for Park and Rec, or are we waiting for City Council?
I think we talked last meeting, and I have not connected with them yet, that we need to set a meeting with
Yeah.
them and choose the location.
Yeah.
And did you have any luck in researching a tree moving company?
Yeah, Bob talked to someone. I'll let you talk about that.
I talked to somebody who can move a tree, and he estimated probably be $5,000 to move a tree, but he really talked my ear off about what a bad idea that was because
Why?
he's he sells brand new trees and he guarantees brand new trees, and he sells festival trees to cities all over the Bay Area. So he was like, he understood where we were coming from. So that was his quick answer, was probably about $5,000 with no guarantee to move a tree, put a brand new tree in the ground with a couple of year guarantee for $1 or $2,000 that's suited
Does
for
he
festival.
have a sequoia for us?
I'm letting you guys discuss this. You've got a lot more time and energy. I just found a mover that was willing to do it, but he
Will
offered.
you give me his phone number
Sure.
and his contact info?
Where is he?
I don't remember off the top of my head. Bay
Um,
Area.
I'd love to see what his thoughts are about what types of trees
I
would
took a
or
note.
would not,
Little note. I'll
Yeah,
I'll find my notes and.
or if he's just trying to sell.
yeah.
No, it seemed real practical. Like you can move it, but then if it dies once it's in the ground,
Oh, well.
there goes $5,000. That was kind of his
Yeah.
his opinion, which I don't know that I want to be waiting in the middle of. You guys have spent a lot of time and energy, and so I like the.
Well, I mean, if you move a small enough one, it should be able to reestablish, so.
Yeah, I'm not an arborist, so I'm not. I just called one person, and I'm reporting
Yeah.
reporting
I-
back how the conversation went.
Don't kill the
Messenger.
messenger.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, but
Are
I'd
we
love to
still
have
in
a
touch with Sean Sweeney? He's an arborist, isn't he? I wonder
Yeah,
if
but
you could-
Sean's like, until you guys are ready to do something, please don't bother me anymore.
No, I just wondered if we could get an
Seriously,
opinion.
Every year we call him, and it's been 10 years, and we've done nothing, and he's like, I
Years.
tell every single one of you every single time.
I'm just asking if he might give us an opinion on moving a tree like we're thinking about.
You have
Yeah,
a
you just
relationship
gotta tell him
with
sign.
I'll see if I can.
You see what Sean says.
Yeah.
So,
Bug
so
me.
we're not asking
I will
for an
bug you on
open-ended
this.
opinion. We're asking him a specific question.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's a good idea, though. Asking about moving a tree. And then we'll get both opinions. We get 3 opinions.
Okay. All right.
And maybe he knows somebody.
Maybe. Okay.
All right. Next, and then we're still going to have a meeting with Park and Rec, or should we get on this piece first before we really set that meeting?
It's worth exploring
All right.
whether we are gonna recommend moving a tree or just
Yeah,
buying a
okay.
tree.
So we'll come up with that, and
Okay.
find some more information out, and then we'll try to get this going. Because
Yeah.
it's such a cute tree. It's so pretty, and it's such a good size. I almost think we could like get rid of the one we have and just put a little teeny one there and have it going, because it's such a perfect little tree.
Well, it's so nice of that guy to offer to give it to us. I really hate to turn that down.
Yeah, me too.
So let's do that. We'll talk to Sean. I appreciate that, Glenn.
Yeah, I mean, I wonder how much the other guy charges for new trees.
Well, and we
You
can
know.
even ask him, what are his thoughts about moving a tree?
Yeah.
you know?
Oh, he seemed
He
like it
seems
was
like, yeah,
a good idea.
as long as you do it this size, and he knew the size.
Yeah.
He
Yeah.
says, if the one, it's right by the road, so you guys don't have to like go under, you know.
Yeah.
Okay.
Anyway,
So
okay,
PCA grant application.
we
We
sent
have
it
heard nothing
in.
more from
We haven't heard anything?
the letters of intent. I guess they're still
All right.
signing.
Okay.
Yep.
Liaison for the tree ordinance. Thank you for writing the memo. I thought it really captured what we talked about.
Yeah. I still think we have work to do. I mean, is there any appetite for going back and sort of covering the municipal side of it?
Yeah, I think not as part of that ordinance,
Yeah.
because that's the part that,
Yeah, I would have liked to have written them comprehensively all at the same time, but that was not what everybody else felt the scope of the project was.
yeah, I don't know that we need an ordinance to regulate.
Yeah,
Oh.
I don't know that it would be an ordinance. I just think we need a set of policies.
Yeah, we had asked about, tagging on to the county's plan to do an urban forest
Yeah.
assessment. We haven't really heard back if that was successful or not, or.
Yeah, 'cause CAL FIRE has that program, so I don't know. Do we need to be part of the county or?
Oh, it's gonna be no cost. to us.
Okay.
It's a
But
grant.
do we have to go through the county? It's no cost if we go through the county, or is it no cost if we go direct to the CAL FIRE?
The county already has an application in
Okay, I
for
see.
doing
I see.
a pretty
So it sees us
comprehensive
the application
sounding-
process.
Yeah, I mean, and
Okay.
countywide. So
Okay.
Haven't heard anything back in a very long time. I've tried to follow up a couple times and not even gotten a reply. So hopefully
Goodness.
someday we'll hear something.
Yeah. And so, do you think there's appetite for writing some policies for the city of Brisbane and tree removal?
Well, oh yeah, we didn't really talk about it very much last time because I guess
Yeah.
we had gotten to the end of the night or something.
Yeah.
But I think internally, and I guess I wanted to ask the committee what they thought about. You had suggested, is it windy? Door keeps shaking.
It must be.
Yeah, I
keep
think so.
thinking someone's going to come in. You had asked about tracking each tree that's either cut or removed, and I kind of asked the question of staff, upper management, and they said, well, you could have that database in a file. Would you rather have that, or would you rather do a comprehensive plan every 7 to 10 years of your urban forest and where you need to fill in? And I said, no, that's a good point.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose if it's an either or, we should have that conversation as a committee. I'd rather it wasn't even an either or, but I realize resources are not infinite. But we could, I mean, do we have oh God, what was the word you just used?
Plan?
Do we have a plan? Existing plan? Because I mean, I think at some point, at least getting a snapshot to know what we've started with and so that we know which direction we're moving would be important.
There was a plan done back in 2007. It was
Okay.
focused on fire mostly,
Uh-huh.
so it didn't talk a lot about climate change impacts, but it
Yeah.
was,
Does it have like a tree count?
it has a list. It has a map at least.
Okay.
Can we see that?
Yeah, I mean, could you send that out and maybe
I
we
might
can?
have to see if I can compress it because it was, 100 pages or something. And
Yeah.
have a limit on file size, but I'll make a note and
Yeah, and then maybe we can start with that, and maybe that'll kind of inform our decision about, it might come to a better place to make a decision whether we want a plan or a database.
Might give us an idea of a direction.
Yeah.
So I think that would be a good idea. If
Yeah.
you can't send it to us, maybe we could see it at the next meeting.
yeah.
100 pages.
I wouldn't go. Maybe the highlights.
Yeah.
The highlights.
Summary
Yeah,
part?
edited.
it's just,
Reader's Digest version.
Want the caveat realized that it wasn't done with an eye for
Yeah.
Right.
canopy and climate change, so it was focused on wildfire. But it is pretty comprehensive what we had at the time.
Okay.
Okay.
Liaison for benchmarking ordinance, Mr. Dykes.
He did come to the
Workshop.
yeah.
Oh.
Okay. Next.
Next calendar items, 2019.
April 27th. Pool broom. Yeah.
Sorry.
Ooh, compost giveaway.
Oh, when's the compost giveaway?
I am hoping that we will be able to have it delivered on May 3rd. I'm waiting for confirmation from Scavenger about whether our proposed location works and the timing. But last year they were able to turn it around pretty quickly, so I'm optimistic that we'll be able to confirm that within the next couple of days and move forward and have that delivery.
Are you
early May.
thinking the same location as last year?
No, actually, we are looking at a location basically just slightly up the hill from the community garden. Actually, if you walk past there on San Francisco, there's kind of the remnants of what was a recent pile of mulch. So it seems like it worked. It worked for that. It could probably work for this.
Okay.
That's a Friday, right?
Yeah, so we would hope to have it delivered in time for people to do their weekend gardening work.
Okay.
The only thing about that is it's going to be a little bit hard for people to turn around on that street.
Yeah, there might be kind of a bottleneck.
Sorry, where is it?
Glenn's got a good point.
Where, she said it might be a bottleneck. Where else would we put it, though?
Well, last year,
Can I interject?
Yeah.
On a busy street. So, and I don't think everyone's gonna come at once.
Okay.
Yeah,
All right,
And,
fair enough.
and the community garden really wanted to have some of the mulch and
Yeah.
for the orchard too.
Okay.
So they
Okay.
asked to have it put there.
that's
So
a,
you're
it's
gonna
a
have
good
put it
idea.
where? I missed that, I'm sorry.
Right
Up
above
below
the
the
community.
garden, at the base of the orchard, kind of
Yeah,
little flat spot.
On San Francisco Street or?
Not on the street, but off street.
Yeah,
on the side.
I know where you mean, yeah. No, I was just thinking about people wanting to turn around and go back down the hill, so they're gonna have to use the driveways of the houses across the street from the community garden, so I
They're
hope
allowed.
nobody gets upset.
it's legal.
Yeah, it's
Nobody
a
cannot
three-point
not
turn.
have you turn around in
The
the
only
driveway.
concern I have, I'm just gonna say this, is there is a beautiful, amazing stand of naked lady bulbs that grows right along there. And I would hate to have them killed and covered with mulch, a big pile of mulch.
There was a, you can go by and take a look, 'cause there were wood chips that were dropped.
Yeah, there's
And this
a
one-
And they
remnant there.
dropped a bunch of those on those as well.
Well then, yeah, same.
So,
Naked ladies are
Literally.
pretty resilient.
not that resilient. That's the best stand we have left in Brisbane.
Really?
Yes.
Okay.
I mean, they used to grow all over town, and I know they're not native, but they are exquisite, and
Yeah.
you know,
That's fine.
I have some on my property and they're around.
I don't even know what they are.
they put up a bunch of
naked
leaves in the
ladies.
spring, and then in like August, they shoot up a stalk with a bunch of pink flowers on them, and they smell like heaven. You've seen them,
Not
They're-
the pink ladies.
yeah,
Yeah.
the Babylon lilies.
Oh,
yeah.
oh,
Those are called naked ladies.
I just called them pink ladies.
Pink ladies, Babylon
No, they're
lilies.
naked.
They have several names. They're called
Yeah.
that because their leaves come up,
Yeah.
you know, in the spring, and then when they come up in the fall, it's just the stem and the flower.
Okay.
Yeah, the foliage has died back
Really pretty.
by the time the
They're
flower.
incredible, and they smell incredible. And
They're great.
Someone plant them there, can you move them?
no, someone did not plant them there. They've been there all my life. I mean, they happened to establish there. They used to be in a lot of the empty lots around Brisbane
Oh.
because they like that hot, dry, grassy thing, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And over the years, they've been all built over and everything.
Yeah.
So there's not a lot of stands of natural stands of them left.
And you're saying they're bulbs?
They're bulbs, yes, big.
Is anyone at the garden attached to them such that they would?
I don't
move
know.
them?
I mean, I'm attached to them. I don't know other people walk by and smell
Oh,
them and love
beautiful.
them, and you know, I mean, they've been there all my life.
But I mean, the garden's been putting mulch there for years and it's never stopped them.
Well, that it's
That I
no,
know
they
of.
have
I mean,
not
I've always
put
seen
mulch
it.
along there until recently.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because they run from like where the stairs are down a ways along the sidewalk in that whole area there. And then, you know, there's less of them last year than there were the year before than there were the year before.
I've noticed there've been a lot less throughout town.
Yeah. Just saying. So, not my favorite place to put the pile.
It does make sense that the garden wants it closer though, because it was quite a schlep for them last year to carry the compost from where it was up to the garden.
John,
What
yeah.
about where the tree was removed? What about that? Pile it there.
Down below the garden?
Yeah, it's right next to the garden.
We can look at below.
Below would be fine.
They wanted it for the orchard, but
They can move it up.
yeah.
Less moving than before.
Yeah, we'll take a look.
We got bike to work coming up day. What bike to work day coming up? Yeah.
It's the 9th of May.
Mary was gonna go.
Mary was. gonna
Yeah,
do it for
Mary said
sure.
she was going to do it.
I'll try and make it.
Do you want to wear the globe costume and high five
Uh-huh.
bicyclists?
No.
Don't you have a volunteer at City Hall that would not want to do that?
She'll have an intern by then,
Tried
right?
that too.
Just tell your intern that's their first job.
I can't wear that and ride my bike. It's just too bulky.
Okay. What is I'm sorry, what is BATO?
benchmarking ordinance, although
Bateau.
it will probably be renamed.
Well, the
My shorthand. It's not public, just for you guys.
B,
Sorry, I'll fix it.
benchmarking, A,
And
and
And transparency.
and transparency
Transparency ordinance.
ordinance. Okay.
It's a secret code.
Yep.
we all now know it.
We are open to your ideas for another name.
I like Bateau.
Well, now that I know what it stands for, I'm okay. You know.
I want to say the Earth Day flags are up. I saw them. Thank you. And
Wrap
go ahead.
it up.
Yep. What else? Coastal cleanup. We've got that. Day in the park, October 5th.
If anybody has brilliant ideas for Day in the Park, speak up. Be thinking about it. Come next meeting with your ideas
Okay.
for Day in the Park. Okay.
we talked before about trying to put aside a little extra money for seed bank removal. You know, we usually go through and the city gets this fennel off the city's property. And we had talked about trying to allocate a little bit more resources to that this year because with the rain after drought, we're kind of expecting things to go bananas.
Yeah, where were you talking about? Everywhere fennel grows.
Yeah, I mean they usually do like along the tunnel where the bridge is, and
Yeah, that's in at least the vegetation management. That'll happen with,
okay,
I'm sorry, vegetation management. Weed abatement that happens in June.
okay. Did we put aside a little extra this year? We had kind of talked about that. I mean, if the committee agrees.
There's a huge amount of a whole fennel field along, sort of at the base below the Mission Blue Center along the Guadalupe Trail. There's a lot of fennel there along those kind of properties that were deeded to the city along with the Northeast Ridge development.
Yeah, I mean, I think big areas we kind of have to tackle as on Habitat Restoration Day, but
I can't really ask volunteers to take fennel out.
okay.
Mm.
Point taken.
Doesn't really come out that easy.
Yeah.
It kind of is a spray.
Is that what we do,
Put
spray?
any money aside for the trail, but in the master plan, that if there is one, that would be a good place to say this should
Fennel.
be part of a continuing maintenance fund.
Well, there's all around the Northeast Ridge. There's a huge amount of fennel.
Yeah.
There's a huge amount of fennel
Salt
almost
disturb.
everywhere.
Okay, well, onward.
Onward.
Okay.
Wanted to know that we were following up on that or something.
Nice poster.
I love that.
Well, this is the version 1. I had the constellations, and check Facebook and Nextdoor tonight. The love and the rate constellations.
And is it in JPEG? Can you send me a JPEG?
Sure.
I'll put it on Mountain Watch and on mine.
Facebook.
Yeah, we'll do.
That's great. Send it to everybody because everybody can help promote it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I
Oh, this is good too.
Yeah, so
cute.
I'll send this out. Did I already send this out?
I don't think
don't
I
think
got
so.
it.
Anyway,
but
we
I
just
haven't checked
finalized
my
the date
email
because we had a
today.
mandatory training on the Tuesday. So that's the finalized date.
Yeah, I think
We'll come here, and hopefully Mark can go with us. And
I thought we were gonna hike up the ridge. I thought we were gonna go over to Allen Buckeye and look at the habitat restoration work. I didn't realize we were gonna drive around. Are we gonna hike or drive?
well, we're going to showcase. We're going to probably drive. We were thinking of we definitely want to showcase the projects we put money towards to show that we have an ongoing budget and a program.
Okay.
So if Mark can go, a really accessible point would be maybe driving by the canyons and then hike up Firth Canyon. If he's here, that was a great idea to go up and see what we've done. But then, if you want to talk about Allen Buckeye, they kind of wanted a tour, so I don't think it'll be just a hike. But we definitely need to showcase kind of the stuff we're doing and working towards so they see that we're putting our money where our mouth is for the next round of grants. So it's fun for the hike, and I haven't done any restoration work on Island Buckeye, so that's why I want to meet with you to see what you're thinking.
Okay. And we should find out what Nancy's thinking.
Yeah, when I talked to Nancy, it was they want to see kind of the restoration stuff we're doing, and they call it Picnic in the Weeds, but I mean, so that's why the canyons are kind of nice and real accessible, and we've done a lot of stuff there in the past couple of years, and we have ongoing budget for those kind of areas, more than. But yeah, if you want to get together,
We need to. We need to have a cohesive plan of what we're going to do and where we're going to take them for a hike and stuff.
yeah, I was thinking, if we do the Sierra Point and the Castañas and stop at Firth and show them, we can hike up there and onto the mountain, and we're still on the mountain, and we're showing all the recent, projects we've gotten money towards and kind of some of our ongoing stuff, and then down with lunch at the nursery.
Okay.
Yeah, if you want to, we can schedule something. Then we have till May 20th to finalize where we're putting our feet on the ground.
Yeah.
We can reserve some parking in front of Castaño, so if a couple car loads have to go up and around, we can have some parking. We have parking at Firth Park, so that'd be easy to get. It's not a.
Actually, we don't have parking there right now with the construction that's going on.
Right.
Yeah, we can get an encroachment permit by May 20th and make sure we get some parking in that area if we need to.
Okay.
Yeah,
All right.
perfect. But yeah, if you've got some other ideas, let's get together and do a quick tour and solidify. That just seems like a great way to showcase this is where we're spending money on, this is what we've done lately, and they see that we're, as an organization, really.
Yeah, I just
organized.
thought that they had expectations of like taking a hike and
And who's having the expectations? I mean, how many people do we have? Have we done this before? Do
No.
we know what works?
we've never done this before.
No, I talk to them on the phone. They want to see kind of what we're doing. They usually they call it Picnic in the Weeds, but it's like just a site visit to there's different members of the county. So
Oh.
someone has a project they kind of want to show off. So
Oh, cool.
yeah, so then it'll be, and then they requested the lunch at Mission Blue if that was possible. So at the nursery.
At the
So,
nursery, yeah.
Yeah.
Everybody
That was
brings
their
their own
idea.
lunch box.
Okay.
So I don't think there's anything real rigid. Just show us what you guys are working on, and then hey, it'd be cool to have lunch there. And but they definitely wanted to focus on what we're doing more than just a scenic hike of just kind of. They were on their map of like how much volunteer effort and how much funding we've got. And Mark's
Awesome.
presentation was fantastic. So
Yeah.
if he wants to join us, he might be able to.
That'd be great.
Yeah, I'll email him tomorrow and see if
He's available.
see if he's available, and if he wants to swing by ahead of time. So maybe I'll send you a notice once I hear back from Mark.
Okay.
Perfect.
I love the gingham. That's just
So
really
cute.
cute.
Yeah.
Really cute.
Oh, is that the plaid?
Yeah.
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 What'd you call it?
Gingham.
Gingham.
Gingham?
Mm-hmm.
Now you know.
You guys all? I've never heard that word before.
Awesome.
Really?
It's called buffalo plaid.
Gingham.
That I never heard of.
I like it.
Gingham I've heard of. It is cute.
Thanks.
Well
Took a
done.
minute to figure out how to get that as a fill.
It's well done.
It's cute.
Okay.
Next.
That's
Chair and committee matters. Member matters.
okay.
There we all are.
Yeah, I have one. When are we getting another committee member?
Same one I have.
Oh, how about that?
It's on the council's agenda tomorrow night to, I guess, set the interviews, and I think they kind of dragged their feet because the public art committee needed someone.
Yeah, but we heard that
Oh.
last time, and they said they were going to go forward. That's now been 30 days.
That
We've been
was-
short like 4 months.
That
5
was
months.
because
Yeah, I know.
Park and Rec Commission was maybe who's a member, they weren't sure, and then I don't have any
Yeah,
control over that.
Karen, we're supposed to.
push.
I advocate, but I,
Well, I complained to my council members about it.
all right. Maybe that's why they're doing it tomorrow.
Let's see.
I had a couple more things. We had talked about reaching out to the YAC for somebody for, as a liaison to the Open Space and Ecology and between the youth and the Open Space and Ecology Committee. What do we need to do? I mean, are we serious about that? I mean, I thought it was a good idea, and everybody else seemed to think it was a good idea at the time. What do we need to do to move that forward?
I did have contact with Ricardo, who
Oh, cool.
staffs SCAC, and they were supposed to meet, I think they were meeting this week or today, but someone was sick, so they didn't, but I think they do meet regularly.
Okay.
And I mentioned, I asked him to promote service hours and coming to Habitat Restoration Day for kids that are on the committee to get their service hours, and spread the word. But I'm focused on having them review on the safe pedestrian routes. We're trying to get that project out to bid and constructed, and we're gonna put medallions along the safe routes or some kind of markers. And the Complete Streets Committee had asked that we talk to kids about like what they want to see and how frequently. So I want to do that with them first, but
Okay. So that's fine if it's not a priority now. When do you think we should check back?
well, ask me next month and I'll
Okay.
write in.
Cool. And as long as you're talking to them about that, you might talk to them about litter too.
Oh,
Litter?
yeah.
Cleaning up litter.
I just know all the places where the kids walk to school are always a lot of candy wrappers.
To do that for their service hours, or just to
Just
wag a finger at them?
Both.
Wag a finger.
Make them realize where that litter goes, and it goes into the bellies of seabirds and animals, and you don't have to tell them that, you know,
They can wag their fingers at each other.
Yeah. No, I just thinking about it because I saw a thing about a whale that washed up in France, and it was all full of a pregnant female whale that washed up. I think it was in France. I didn't look that closely at the article, and it was full of plastic. The whale's stomach was full of plastic, and you know, it's a bummer.
Those are downers.
oh yeah, they finally put a garbage can today in front of the community pool.
Oh,
My goodness.
there wasn't one there before.
No.
Wow.
They do have the
place
3
for it.
recycling bins in the pool area,
Yeah.
two sets of them, and they took one of those big heavy cans and moved it from there out to in front of the pool today. So I was really happy to see that because I keep looking for a place to throw away litter that I see in front of the pool and along the walkway there, and
Yeah.
Been in the pool way too long. We're up
If the pilot goes well, that can graduate up to and adopt a spot.
that would be nice. How is that going?
I don't think we have any feedback yet.
Do we have them up?
Adopt a spot.
I know at least one of them is up.
Where?
Goes Daniel. That was up before the raccoon.
Right. Any others yet?
Has anybody adopted it?
Don't know. It's not intended to be adopted by
Oh.
one particular person.
Oh, okay.
It is intended
Gosh,
for
it's been so long. I guess I
people
forgot what
walking
we're doing.
through to take ownership and
Yeah.
pick up the
Okay.
litter
Right.
and drop it into that station.
Spot.
It has been some time since I have followed up with the crew members who are supposed to be installing them, so I don't know.
Okay.
Thank you.
Maybe make it your Earth Day mission. Follow up with
There is the initial.
along with all the millions of other things you have to do, Adrian.
Yeah.
Anybody else have anything else for chair? and committee?
Yeah, I was trying to search some of the old minutes and I couldn't, is it just, I just want to ask first, was it just me or is it not a searchable PDF, the minutes?
I know that that is something that is supposed to be changing on our website. I do not know if that is something that requires PDFs that were previously uploaded to be
Searchable.
edited or reformatted in some particular way. So
That should
I-
be part of it,
okay.
so if we can have it that way.
Yeah, because I actually go back and refer to stuff and just trying to, I can't search every single one manually, so I don't know how everybody else feels, but it would be deeply, deeply valuable for me to have the things actually be searchable.
Yeah.
Lots of times we go back and search them manually, so.
Yeah.
Are you
You would
by
benefit
date?
too. Well, that's it. I often can't remember exactly when something was.
Yeah.
You're
Then I
searching
go,
by
like,
subject? Is
Yeah,
that what
so
you
I'm
wanna
like,
do?
I'll go through like a date, and then I'll be like, okay, it wasn't that month, and then I go search. Yeah.
Yeah, search on our website, on the city's website is really
Yeah.
pretty lame.
So, I don't know.
That's a tough one.
It is a tough one.
Are they searchable PDFs? 'Cause I don't know. Okay.
I don't either.
That's
No idea.
something that maybe.
All of the PDFs should be searchable independently.
Yeah.
The question of whether our website functions to search inside of documents hosted on our website is not something that I am
Okay.
It doesn't.
aware of
Or-
or really
yeah.
involved
Ability.
with. So I can't answer that question.
That's
I can try to get you an answer.
Is that who should I be following up with? I mean, don't want to make you do it, Adrian. That's not really your.
I guess maybe Caroline would be
Caroline?
my best
Okay.
guess. She
I'll see if I
does
can-
work with the IT
Yeah.
consultant, the website consultants primarily. So
Yeah. All right.
she
Car-
may
I'll-
know the answer off the top of her head
Yeah.
or where that project is.
Or at least you'll be able to get the answer.
Yeah. I mean, it's great if it's already a project in progress. And I'll try and remember to follow. I'll put a note to myself here to follow up with her. How's that?
So,
Note to self. Follow up with Caroline.
anything else for chair and committee matters, people?
Nope.
All right, staff updates. You got 2 minutes. Just kidding.
Challenge accepted. uh, so, first thing I wanted to note was that we have an e-waste event. The county hosts a series of e-waste events all over for anybody that lives in the county and was looking for hosts. So we will be hosting one on June 8th in the morning at the marina. They'll be putting together some marketing and we'll be getting that out. But they have asked if we have any volunteers that might be willing to help out that morning. They just need some extra people to kind of help with the sorting, I
June
believe.
which?
June 8th. It's a Saturday.
I think I can do that.
I already have it on my calendar.
Yeah.
Where are they going to set up at?
It's going to be in that kind of very north end parking lot of the marina.
Oh, the north end.
Because they wanted to be able to basically take over a very large parking lot. They're going to bring in a 53-foot Goodwill trailer, maybe two. So they wanted a very large space. And apparently they had 400-something people come through their last event in Burlingame, which caused some serious traffic problems. So they were looking for a space that could
Perfect.
bring people out of the flow of traffic, which I think this should do.
I'm happy to volunteer,
Yeah.
as long as I don't have a gig that shows up.
Okay. I will make note of it and keep you posted.
And it's gonna be.
And you got that. I'll volunteer for that, right?
Yes.
Okay.
I just looked on my phone and I can search the PDFs right from the minutes. No, just as soon as I touch the minutes, there's a search bar on my phone, and no matter what word so I don't think it's.
It's maybe.
But you have to touch in the minutes to do it?
I just open the minutes and then there's a little search bar. So I don't know if it's. You might want to try a different device because
Okay.
there's definitely not a restriction from the.
Well, at least it's there. So now I know I should try harder.
Yeah,
Or try not, on a different computer sometimes.
yeah. I don't know. That just worked flawlessly at first try. So.
Thank you.
So we finally heard back about the 2018 Sun Shares results, and we actually did have one contract that was signed for 7.2 kilowatts, of solar in last year's Sun Shares program. So I was unaware that we had a contract signed until I got that final report. That was exciting. I am going to be flying to LAX very, very early tomorrow to speak on a benchmarking panel with our consultants from the Energy Coalition at a municipal green building conference and expo in Southern California. If anybody's familiar with PG&E's Pacific Energy Center that hosts a lot of events and trainings, this is essentially Southern California Edison's version of the same facility in an annual conference. So, wish me sleep.
Good.
Talk faster, you'll get to sleep sooner.
We already talked about the benchmarking workshop, so I'm not going to mention anything more on that. And I don't know that we talked about at the CAP subcommittee update. The county has a draft disposable foodware proposal that the committee reviewed and provided some feedback on because they had a very short turnaround time. I'm sure we'll be seeing more on that. But they also are looking for reuse ambassadors. So I think I sent you guys an email.
You did.
I don't remember what day that was, but sometime recently.
The same day
that
you sent
included
the
that.
minutes and stuff.
Yes. So they are looking for people to help with the outreach. I know that was something that Glenn and Ross and Karen and I had talked about at that meeting when we were discussing the ordinance. So I think it would be great if we had local people going out to our local businesses. If there's any interest in participating in that, I would definitely check it out. And my last update, I believe, is just the REACH code stuff is continuing to plug forward. So we've had a couple of meetings and calls recently, and we're expecting to have a kind of draft framework from what the county is thinking. It sounds like it maybe is in progress. I'll be on a webinar that they're presenting next week, Thursday, I think it is. So it's moving along, and if things proceed accordingly, we may bring something to this committee even next month if it's available and the committee's interested. It would obviously be a draft form, but if not, then if the committee wants to review that, we could bring that at a later date.
I'm super interested.
Me too.
If you saw our contractor out at a couple of intersections in the this week, they were potholing, locating utilities for the green infrastructure project that we're hoping to construct later this summer, seeing if there are any conflicts. We're about to open bids for the Tunnel Avenue pavement repair. We're adding Sharrows, so that's the thing that's maybe interesting. So we
Adding
know that-
what?
Sharrow?
Huh?
What are you adding?
Sharrows, they're the bike, share the road,
Oh,
Oh, okay.
called Sharrows.
on tunnel?
On tunnel.
Are we making it wider?
No, that's why they're Sharrows.
Share.
There isn't room for, yeah, there isn't room for bike lanes, so it's a notification for drivers that there are bikes on this road too.
There was supposed to be a bike
Yeah.
path along there.
I know.
So what happened to that? It used to be there.
The green, you mean, like for the actual bike path green?
There was an actual bike path that went along on the west side, east side of Tunnel Road that has disappeared.
We don't expect significant improvements before development happens.
That'll be a while.
Yeah.
And
It
then
would
it's
be
got
nice
those big.
if we'd not have significant losses, though, too. Like losing a bike lane.
Yeah.
Now it's got those big bollards by the side
Yeah.
of the road, and I'm assuming that was to discourage trash dumping.
Yeah.
Is that right?
Adrian didn't mention this, but we got trained on the City Hall solar system monitoring program.
Good.
That was kind of cool. And we learned through that this was an RFP, but we weren't directly a part of it, that there's an energy production guarantee for 5 years. So that's what the monitoring is for, is to make sure they meet that. And the transportation mode survey that you guys went over last month got sent out to staff as a trial, and is going to be sent out like next week to the rest of the
To real people.
real
Everybody else.
people. What are we? We're commuters too.
To more of the public, real people,
That's all I have.
fake people. No, I didn't, man, I know.
So I just remembered one thing, which is probably out of place, but I just want to run this by the committee. We could talk about it next meeting if you're interested. A lot of cities in California are declaring climate emergencies, and
Yeah.
there's an effort. Well, there are multiple efforts underway. There's an effort in the legislature to get the legislature to have California declare a state of climate emergency, and there's also pressure on our governor to declare a climate emergency. So, just thought I'd run it by the committee. Do we want to ask Brisbane to declare a climate emergency?
Absolutely.
I think I would want to think a little bit more about the wording of it, but
Of course.
I'm definitely interested.
I think it's probably more of an educational vehicle than anything else. But if you're interested in it, you can look online and see there are a whole bunch of cities that have declared climate emergencies, so you can get an idea of what those declarations look like.
That's awesome.
Kind of curious what the impact would be of that, not just the
Just not just
educational
education.
and social, but
Yeah.
would it mean that they could put through emergency legislation to do things that might backfire on us?
Yeah, I mean, that was my one thought, is the whole Agenda 21 thing.
I don't think any of the emergency declarations have included that. But yeah, I agree, we want to avoid that.
Like, for instance,
Gesundheit.
Okay, are we good? Anybody have anything else? Are we ready to adjourn?
I move we adjourn.
Anyone want a second?
Turn up the mics.
You want to sneeze? Your second?
I second.
Thank you, Glenn. All right, I are all in favor.
Yeah.
Aye.
Woohoo! We have adjourned the meeting. Next meeting is May 15th. Put it on your calendar. Be there, be there.
Okay.
Thank you, ladies, gentlemen. People. I don't know, Mr. Ross.
What's going on with Ross?
New baby.
Well, I'm just crazy busy like everybody else.
Yeah, he can't be any busier than I am.
3 meetings in a row is not good.
No.
That's
Has it been 3? Yeah.
That's number 3. This is the third one.